would say we spend 5 minutes for each of these 4 points, and then would have 10 more minutes to round up the whole conversation. Let's say five, so we can still just catch up and close the conversation. Does that sound okay for our speakers, Bayode and Jerry?
Absolutely. I need to comply by the rules of um, your event. So I appreciate that.
Right. Okay. So apart from you, Kunle, is there anyone else that is on the neutral side of this conversation? Because I understand Bayode is on the side of the Senate president, in my understanding, and Jerry is also talking from the perspective of Natasha, the lady of accusing the Senate president of. Is there anyone else on the neutral side of things?
Yeah, I think we can just make it in such a way that the neutral people would just be the,
Audience.
viewers. Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, in such a case, let's get to it. Misconduct on the floor, Natasha. Um, right. Since I'm assuming that we all understand this situation and we know this story. And just to save time, I wouldn't go over the whole story again. So I'd like to start with the perspective of Natasha. So starting with Jerry. Jerry, what are your views about this whole situation? What are the things she has said, and what are the things we need to know about the reality of this situation? Take it away, Jerry.
Okay. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you for this opportunity. Uh, Here is my view about the whole thing. Yeah. When um when the whole misconduct, the whole saga started making rounds on the in media houses, I um I noticed one thing. I noticed a Black Knight movement from the Senate and from the wife of the Senate president. Now, as a damsel in distress, which happens to be Natasha, we could say she was manipulative in some way by going to uh, international conferences and seeking public sympathy over what was happening to her in the Senate, in the House, you know. And that is like an attempt for a woman to come against the leadership of the house she is a part of. Now, that was wrong from her own end. That was washing her dirty lining out there in the public. That was wrong. But then, what were the Senate response to what she did, to what has been going on? You know, they passed a vote of confidence on March 13th, I guess. March 13th of this month, 13th of this month, that the Senate president should focus on legislative duties of the National Assembly and not be distracted by the ongoing allegations. That sounds uh, lack of accountability to me. This is a member of your house that is out there exposing you, that is out there with heavy allegations. And then the house is now back and saying, let us focus on legislative duties and ignore what is actually going on out there on international platforms.
Right. Thank you very much for that point. And I'd really like to hear Biode's response to this direction of how this has been taken. Like from what Jerry has said, do you have any responses, or do you want to pick up this conversation from another direction altogether?
Thank you once again, Soja, for the opportunity to give my opinion about the situation. And if I have to, now the rest from what um, the person has given as his own opinion about the whole issue, I think it's important to have it a kind of review of what has happened over the case. And him picking from where she went to report it, it's just like not being totally open about the situation. So, so the question is that at what point does this became important to her? Was it after being after a position, a seat was changed? when does she found there? And even if we have to take a look at what she made as the proofs, which was one of the whole issue was okay, he had a handshake and kind of a squeezing of hands and all of, and so she gave interpretation to that, and that is a subjective interpretation because we have clear cut, we have subjective. So and he rightly mentioned about international perception about the situation. So, at what point does the Nigerian National Assembly became subject to being interrogated by the Deutsche Welle, BBC, and all of that? They are not answerable to those people, respectfully speaking. But having said that, it doesn't mean that they cannot be held accountable for their mistakes if proven, if well proven. But we are talking about two genders there, which are fundamental genders, male and female. So are we saying that we will outrightly be victimized at every point in time whenever a woman feel have this kind of a kind of bias thought about our positions. So everyone will just take it hook, line, and sinker and just say, okay, then it's right. She just said it. We have to investigate it. At what point what value on the scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the highest priority given to cases and 1 the least, at what point how do we grade the weight of all of these allegations? So someone can just wake up anytime and just say, oh, someone through a handshake, which I interpreted wrongly, and a senator for that matter, having to be around people every day, every time, creating bonds, attending to events and all of that. So, and, when we, that aside, another view we have to look into
before you go to the other view, I'd like to hear Jerry's response to this. Because you said, can someone just wake up early in the morning and just be like, okay, I've been hacked by someone because of some handshake and all this sort of stuff? And as Kunle said at the beginning of this conversation, that he who alleges must prove. Jerry, from your point of view, have there been any solid, concrete evidences about this whole situation? Has she come out clear to say she's got maybe an audio, a video, text messages, emails, or something concrete that could really tie this all together as an actual case of?
Yes, she said according to her last interview, she said with BBC, I guess, she said she is armed with several evidences that indicated the man not on one occasion or two occasions
Okay,
or
to just put you on the panel
three
based on that
occasions.
point.
She said she's armed with evidences of which that is not actually the point we should dwell on. I think we should dwell on the fact that a member of the House is out there blaring very bad noise about the House. If there is any sense of responsibility or if there's any denial of systemic bias against women in politics, I believe the leadership should have investigated it and try to contain it or take care of it. But there was no investigation. There was no any decision, any concrete decision made against taking care of what she's doing. So she was just left on her own. She's out there making her noises, and then, as Dio said, if I got his name right, that do we just wake up victimized by a woman interpreting whatever it is that happened between us as? You see, that is undermining to me. If you look at it with the eyes of sincerity, it's really undermining. We are not saying that we should actually come under the hoof of every accusation that a woman should drop on us like a bull. No, that is not what we are saying. But what we are saying is, if there is a voice out there against us, against our integrity as a nation, as a house that preside over a federation, then actually we need to take care of it as quickly as possible. But nothing of such was done. So that's my argument. There's a systemic bias that actually was towards ignoring her.
So now you're saying no disciplinary committee was set up to look into this case?
No. Only
saying
penalizing them. There was in fact, there was no committee. It's the House, a fraction of the House just decided to go ahead and penalize her and suggest some things that should be done to her or against what
Right.
she was doing.
Right. Okay. Okay. To support your case, at the same time, to still be against your case, just to let the groundwork set for Biode in his response to what you said. I believe like we have three equal arm of the government, the executive, legislative, and judiciary. So now, if she's having a case against the head of the legislative, of course, we might be able to expect a little bit of bias. I mean, not only in Nigeria, US, UK, wherever. If you're dealing directly with Trump, for example, you might expect a little bit of bias. That's why you'd have the other arms of the government to use to bring your voice out. Biode, has she explored all the options available to her? For example, going to court, doing this the proper way, not trying to seek for sympathy from like media houses and all this stuff. Do you believe that she has done the most appropriate steps to deal with this matter?
See, thank you for that interesting question. And, in my opinion, in response to what Jerry has laid down, I think it's the whole thing about this discussion is faulty from the start. Why did I say that? Number one, if we can recall that the first time this woman was coming on air to say this was on these from I think Bracket platform or Arise. I'm not sure which one precedes the other. So, and even if you if you take your time to watch the video again, you will realize that on Arise TV specifically, that was the last thing she discussed during the time that she was considered for an interview. So, on what is the priority of that situation to her? Is it the changing of the position or the argument was our first priority to present to the public? So then if you look at the timeline of events, she has already failed with her presentation by saying that the whole thing started in 2023. We're in 2025 for crying out loud. So how does, of course, I'm not saying that the timeline has already vindicated the Senate president, but I'm saying that what priority does she give to that concern? So, and don't let us forget that these guys are family friends. So, at what point did she feel like, okay, it's high time I spoke out? So, you can't just wake up and say, oh, because they have granted interview at BBC on BBC, then the Senate has the responsibility to go and clear that air. It depends on the value you are placing on the whole case. So, and that does not diminish the fact that it could be true. It's possible, but you cannot lay that foundation on a faulty ground. It's so
Okay.
faulty. It's so faulty. There is no proof, and don't forget that in all of our interviews, she never cried. Only for her to go out of Nigeria, then to start crying. And interestingly, for some of us who have been privileged to live outside of the country, we understand how these people interpret our behaviors. So you might be feeling that, oh, they are feeling considerate about your position or the situation, but sometimes they might be seeing you as a stupid entity. So when you have so much opportunity to you have your own fan base, you are a representative of a constituency, and you never raised any issue for over 1 year. That's over 12 months. And all you could come up with, you never gave us any snippet of an event or a video that, okay, let me just give you a short clip. And this person has made a false allegation previously on another individual, which was an appointee of the president and the former president. So if that guy, Reno Mockery, if he has decided, if the President Jonathan decided to relieve him of his own position, then you now come back and delete your post. Then what do we make of that? So
Right. Okay. Talking about that, I would start from you with this one, and then I'll go back to Jerry and give him sufficient time to talk about this. Because from Jerry's point of view, let's even say this was accurate, or let's say it is totally false. No, I think weighing it around the accurate side makes more sense.
okay.
He is of the opinion that this has not been managed well or responsibly by the Senate? Because if this is one of yours and she's come out to cry that your leader is abusing me in a certain way or something, but instead of looking at that matter with total responsibility, he is saying, from his opinion, there is a lack of the duty of care from the Senate in how they manage the situation. What do you think about that?
I still go back to a faulty start. We have within the National Assembly, they have the ethical committee or ethics and yeah, I think it's the committee on ethics. So did she present the case before them, before going on Arise TV, which is a private for business purpose entity, or Berekete, which is being funded by maybe the owner or something, but it's not a national platform. So this is a person, is an individual that is representing on the national scale a constituency. And if that thing has happened within the National Assembly, then it becomes a national issue. So which has to be placed under the ethics committee to be reviewed and considered. Of course, we have different political parties there. So if she has tabled it within those, or she can even raise it within her own political party structure within the National Assembly first. Okay, look at this thing. This is what the Senate president has done to me, and how do we proceed? Because
Right.
we can't just say, oh, because she said it, and she said it at the last minute of her interview. Of course, that doesn't matter, but I'm talking about the priority she has given to the issue. So obviously, the timeline and how she presented it shows her own level of priority placed to it, placed on the topic.
Okay. Okay. Having said that, Jerry, um, what would you say if we have to move forward? Now we now agree, well, it might be true, it might be untrue, there might be evidence, there might be no evidences because she can alert that she's got anything she says she has, and she probably doesn't, or even if she does. What would you say is the way forward here? And how do you think this relates or ties into women in politics? What does it mean for women in politics? And what's the way forward at this quagmire where we are at the minute?
Okay. Not to drag us back, but I want to actually talk the, 10 seconds over the Bioday's point of the timeline that this is what has started happening from 2023. Uh, Mr. Bioday, what if she was being respectful and then the sludge kept on growing from a molehill, and then it's becoming what was unbecoming until she had to speak out? You see, I have investigated several cases. I have counseled several parents that brought out issues concerning that when I was a therapist. So I discovered that a child could be under duress when a family friend is making advances, which might even take some time. Sometimes it could even take up to 3 years, his mounting pressure, until the child has to speak out or until it spills out in some way. And then the third party is now coming into the case, and it's like, how long has this been going on? And then you will discover a hole that has been dug for like 24 months ago. Yeah. So she could be respectful, or she could have been respectful to see that the person she is alleging that is actually a man that should have owned it and then make a U-turn. Well, that's my point. Now, for women in politics, the first point or the one of the key points I raised the other time is systemic bias. There has been always a pushback anytime a woman comes forward about any misconduct she's experienced with a man, be it in that institution or in any of the organization, there's always that systemic pushback that does not come personal but institutional. Now, this we would say is actually blocking the opportunity or the grounds for women to assert themselves in leadership. Women in politics, if they continue to face this systemic bias with power structures that often marginalize their voices and make it difficult for them to assert themselves, then their true potential in leadership can never be harnessed. at all. We could not experience who the leadership excellence was supposed to experience from women. That's number two. Number three, uh, the lack of accountability is a serious thing that the Senate or the state should look at, because where a woman is making noise about a thing, you must investigate it, you must manage it, you must micromanage it. You don't allow your lining to go outside. A guy used to say the foolishness of your woman is your weakness as a man. So if you allow her to go out there and start making use of those platforms, that has become your weakness. I can't see you demonstrating any sense of leadership there, but I just see a man, an African man, who is brute, who is douche, and who is actually negligent about women in politics.
Brilliantly,
Finally,
brilliantly.
finally,
Okay, go on.
visibility, representation, and then reforms. You see, if there is a public outcry, if we are all Natasha is going out there, what sort of brand are we selling to the international stage? What sort of brand are we selling on the political stage internationally out there? If we are all Natasha, could trend just as Bring Back Our Girls trended the other time. You see, we are creating more rooms for our onlookers to see us as amateurs in this business called politics. A man should demonstrate his leadership, and then there must be a way that there could be reformation in all of this. Look at what they did the other time. I said there is a black night in motion in
What do
which
you mean by Black Knight? What's a Black Knight?
you play chess. If you play chess, a knight moves in a misdirectional way. He take a
Yeah,
step
but
and
there's
then
also
two
a White
different.
Knight on the chessboard, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So now, what the Black Knight move was the wife of the Senate president coming out to say something against her fellow fellow woman who is experiencing something that she could not even investigate. She does not even have enough data about, right? So there should be a sense of integrity in the way we handle things. You cannot just go through the back door and then trigger a scorpion to go out stinging other people just because you want to maintain your manliness in the case. So
Right.
so that's my view about this. That is how it affects women in politics.
Brilliant. Brilliantly said. And I really like your opinion. And just to wrap this up by your day, I would give you another last 2 minutes to finalize your conversation or your argument. And then I'll put it open for the floor, like 1 minute each for whoever wants to talk. But then in a space or in a society where we have social media, as Jerry has rightly said, to micromanage situations like this, what do you think is the way forward? And what does this mean for women in politics? And how can you even identify what's fake and what's real? Because then if you give too much credibility to things like this, then it could become worse because people could abuse the system. And if you don't, you could marginalize some people that are truly genuine and being marginalized. So what do you think? What do you say about this as a closing statement?
So, Jaman, I appreciate if my 2 minutes is well considered. And so I would like to first respond to what Jerry said regarding the Senate president's wife. You see, in his own time, in his own view, he was validating the senator's position on this harassment, and at the same and claiming that it has to do with women being heard, and on the other hand, is now denigrating the position of the wife of the Senate president, because this is a woman that has known her husband over the years and the credibility that he's had over the years. Of course, these are politics, and this is politics, and we have interactions. No one wants to give in for the other political party, and so these things, they are the baselines of this discussion. So, as much as we want to seal it in all this awesomeness, it is important for us to also note that they are political figures. So, and nothing is as neutral as it seems. So, having said that, how does it affect women in politics? Of course, our political space is growing, and what we are communal people, and cultural at the same time that over the years it has impact on impact on the women's participation in politics. But in reality, they are participating. It's improving. It's just that the offices they are holding is still at the minimum, the barest minimum, which is not supposed to be so. But I think reforms, we've had reforms in the past, and but it's not well implemented. So, and I believe that it's a matter of time, things will adjust and will improve. And it has to do with the political parties, their readiness to nominate women. It's not given. They have to fight for it. We don't forget that we are talking about politics. So is it that the policy says, oh, give a certain threshold for women, but if there is no, if they're not following on those thresholds, then you don't expect a man that is ambitious or has been planning to contest for a position to just say, oh, because another person is a woman. Because you can be seen as a woman, I can be seen as a man in the political space. We're talking about,
Yeah.
so they have meetings overnight. You don't talk about genders. They sleep in men's house, not for any ulterior motive, but political meetings. They feel safe when they want to get to what they want. So, but at what point are we talking politics or we are talking about gender? So there are two different things because this is politics. So when you just talk about the agenda, we have people, the Speaker of the House in the United States, this woman, uh, oh, just
Nancy?
yes, Nancy Pelosi, and she interacts with men, and these people have been in the assembly for decades. Then are you saying that there is no interaction? People don't obsess at each other. They are grown-ups. They should have a way to set boundaries. So no one she doesn't need to for the public to tell her the boundaries. No, she has to create a boundary herself. So it doesn't have to say, "Oh, cry to the public." Set your own boundary. So don't come and tell us what doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, respectfully to the women. It
Right.
doesn't.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You both have given very, very brilliant sides of your conversation. Very amazing points, very interesting points. And I'm afraid we are up by 30 minutes as we speak. But does anyone of the neutral people have anything to say, or do we just call it a day? Right. Okay. I can see some chats rolling in.
Exactly. From Mr. Franklin.
Okay. Do you want to read it then, Kunle?
Let me go through it. It reads, my take on the Natasha and Senate President issue is that it's a distraction from the real problems facing our country. While it is important to address the matter, we shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture: corruption, insecurity, economic instability, and more. Let's prioritize holding our leaders accountable for the issue that truly matter. A whole lot is wrong, and until we start telling ourselves the truth, this issue may never be resolved. Franklin from Lagos. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very helpful, to be honest. And also, picking from the points from Bio Day about situation with women, I would say that also extends to youths wanting power, wanting leadership. If you look at history, you would see that no power was ever given. You'd have to fight and take whatever you think belongs to you. And for Jerry as well, thank you so much for bringing it out here that a lot of times women go through so many things, but there is usually that time where that incubation period where they hold it in and hoping that everything will just go away smoothly and maturely. And when it doesn't and they come out, then people start to say, why didn't you speak sense? But then I was doing my own things. I was setting my own boundaries and it wasn't working for 3 years. And then it's now come beyond my power. And then people are looking at me like, you didn't speak sense. What do you mean? So yeah, thank you so much. This has been a very lovely conversation. And as it is, I would assume this is also the end of this conversation until next time. Is that correct, Kunle?
I think so. And do you have any contribution from our viewers?
Yeah, someone has just said, I'm concerned because a woman in my daughter is
It's growing
growing fast
fast
in my
in my
house.
house.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other contribution,
Contribution.
whether verbal or text?
Mr. Jerry, for some of the young boys there, they are worried as well that one day they might just wake up and see posts concerning them being lied on and what never happened, and that they will be responsible to prove it. How do you prove that? So it's a two-way thing. Does not And I have a daughter, and I always tell her to set her boundaries. So you have to set your boundaries. So I believe, in my opinion, I may be wrong. It depends on your perception, but I would advise to tell your daughter to set boundaries.
And maybe if I want to ask a question also is that, allegation, should it be something like what we actually use as a game? Because, I'm not on the side of anyone, but actually, if I could recover very well, this lady in particular has alleged someone wrongly, and the person brought out proof, and the husband had to settle out of court. Now, the question is, okay, I think it was Reno Moku, right? If Reno has not brought out proof, that wouldn't have also made the allegation right, but there was no proof.
Right. Okay. Well, in order not to extend this
Yeah.
beyond timing, because I would imagine some people have really thought about this time for half an hour,
Yeah.
and also for some people that are 2 hours ahead from where I am, it would be very
No,
late.
me, I'm enjoying it too.
Okay. I don't know if that's the same opinion for everyone else, or like for our fathers in the house. We have great politicians here in Patrick and the journalists in Soy,
Yeah. That's
Solihull.
what I'm trying to
Solihull.
say.
Wait, is that Birmingham? Solihull.
Saliu. I think it's a typo. Mr. Heledi here is a very
Oh, oh,
experienced
oh,
journalist. And
oh
then
God. I thought that
Patrick,
was a place like Solihull that wasn't spelled correctly. Okay.
Saliu, it's a typing error. So,
Okay.
and then Patrick is also a very great politician here. I think they wouldn't be fair to us if they will just listen and then go away.
Probably can
Saliu,
actually give them the floor.
yes, I
Yeah.
think we should listen. We should hear from
Yeah.
them.
Maybe in
Patrick
just 2
is
minutes, they
All
can
right.
just say
Can I
something.
give
Yeah.
everybody 1 minute each?
Yeah.
Because
Good.
I'm worried about the people in Nigeria because this is half past 10. Am I correct? Or quarter
And I think it's
to
also, yeah,
11.
to 10, yeah. It's still the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. For me, I'm still great because this is only 8 o'clock.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So go on then. If we can just give them 1 minute each to add their views.
All right. Really grateful for being part of you meeting. And I think I've learned a lot. And respect to the issue, I've only been dismayed by the eight Senate because in terms of fair hearing, in terms of integrity, ensuring the fact that as a woman on an issue of men, violence, a lot of government parastatals, individuals, people have always been protecting the girl child and so many things in relation to. However, on the matter when it arises, I said the Senate will be more mature than the way they handle it. So we may support here and there, but at the end of the day, we will still be embarrassed by the way our Senate, Nigerian Senate handled the matter. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. That's been very helpful. Is it Salihu that is next to say something?
All right, good evening, all.
Good evening, Salihu.
It's been a great time here. Well, my take on this issue, both Natasha and the Senate president, after listening to her interview, I told my colleagues at the office, these two have something hidden that they're not telling us.
Exactly.
Because and I just see it as a mind game to take away our attention from the major issues in Nigeria. And this has been a normal game for the politicians, and they do that a lot. So if Natasha actually have a case from the Senate president, I think there's a better way of her to present her case rather than all these things that she's doing, jumping from one place to the other. And the highest level of it that is not even making sense to me is her going to the UN. You understand? And we all know how the Europeans and the Americans have their take on gender, regardless of our culture around here. So these are things that on a normal day, to an African man, a woman doesn't have a place. And we're trying to fight for a place for the woman. And Natasha and her likes are using their own hands to prove to these men, to us, that they are not even ready for whatsoever the men are bringing to the table as a challenge. Because she have a case, but the way she's handling everything, at first, why are you even going to the national TV for all this? And to her husband, a title holder, and the man is keeping quiet, he's not even saying anything. So I feel like there's something that these people are not telling us.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Salihu. Thank you so much. I'd let you continue talking, but
But I
again,
think we have
because of the
someone
timing,
raising up his
yeah, yeah,
hand.
yeah, yeah. That would probably be the last one we'd have for tonight. Kolawale, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Mr. Sally, you actually spoke my mind. Like you spoke everything I have in mind. Because if you look at uh, the accusation itself, it's a very big issue, very, very big one. And the accuser and the person being accused are just taking things like they are playing a chess with Nigerians. So if you're being accused of, you want to actually step up, like challenge whoever is accusing you of what probably you didn't do. And if the person accusing, how will you be accusing someone of and you wrote your petition by yourself without having a legal representation? That's a huge blow on whatever she's talking about. Yeah, with due respect to her, Natasha was my senior when I was in secondary school. She was my head girl, but
Mm,
I expected more from her than doing media. I even expected her to like go back to your senatorial district instead of you going to international media. Yeah, let people come out, let them support you, let them show solidarity support. Look at what they're doing over there right now, trying to recall her in a shady way because of her absence. And we all know she's got a lot of political ambition. She wants to be a governor of a state, but that's not how to handle it. It's just like putting yourself out to remove or to bring yourself downward. So
right,
yeah,
right.
so that's
She's
my own
trying to dig
opinion.
herself out the hole, but then she's digging herself right in. Even
Exactly.
right. Okay. Thank you so much, Kolawole. I'm afraid the reason why I'm moderating today is to put a hard stop to this because as controversial as this can be, we can continue to talk and talk and talk the whole night. And yeah, as this is a new program, we are wanting to keep it interesting, keep it having people expecting the next episode, the next session, the next conversation, the next debate, and would hope that you guys that have been on the first one would want to be on the next. And with that said, I'd like to say thank you very, very, very much for participating.